Losing your passport in a foreign country is one thing. Replacing it during a global pandemic, when government offices are closed and phones go unanswered and you're already living in limbo, that's something else entirely. This is what happened when I had to replace my Canadian passport in Mexico. In my previous video, I shared how my purse was stolen while I was sitting at a cafe in San Antonio, Mexico, right across from Walmart. Inside that purse was my debit card, my rent money, my driver's license, and, of course, my passport. That one item would become key to the months-long mess I found myself in, and the quiet fear of living undocumented in a foreign country. The next day, I started investigating how to replace my passport through the Canadian Embassy. At first, I assumed I'd need to go to Guadalajara, a large city less than an hour away. But when I called the embassy there was no answer. So I left a message. After 2 days, my call was not returned. So I called again and left another message. Now I was starting to lose a bit of hope from hearing from them, so I found their email address and sent one off. Eventually, after days of waiting, I got a response telling me to contact the Canadian Embassy in Mexico City, a flight away. The Guadalajara location was closed. And as for the embassy in Mexico City, because of the global pandemic, there were no in-person appointments, which meant I didn't have to fly there after all. And there also were no phone calls because people weren't there to man the phones. They would just come in and pick up the mail, etc. So I had to depend on email. And everything moved in slow motion. Very slow motion. I started researching how to replace a Canadian passport while living abroad. The instructions weren't hard, but getting it done, that was another story. I needed a guarantor that knew me for at least 2 years. That ruled out everybody in Mexico. I needed passport photos, pictures that met the Canadian standards. No idea where to get those. I needed a copy of the police report. Now I knew where to get that from, but I wasn't going to look forward to that trip. And the application forms, of course, themselves, which could be sent to me by an attachment in an email, but I had no printer. And then there was the all-important proof of ID, which was tricky since my driver's license was stolen too. I did not look forward to traveling to the police station. It wasn't on the bus route, but at least I knew where it was this time. And like I said, I didn't have a printer. I had no idea where to get the proper photo services, and I didn't have any valid government ID left in my possession. And so I researched. I asked a lot of questions. I found a print shop a few villages away, about half an hour away, and I could forward the required paperwork via email and print them out when I got there. I eventually found a proper photographer. His shop was a little closer. Then there was the issue of government ID. That required several emails back and forth to the embassy, explaining, persuading, and still I waited and prayed. Weeks turned into months. I got everything I needed and sent it to Mexico City by courier. But remember, that office was closed too. It took several days for someone to claim the package from the courier. Now, by April, I had moved into my new apartment in San Antonio and still had no passport. My 6-month visitor visa had technically expired a long time ago, but the proof of that, my stamped passport, was gone. I couldn't leave Mexico. I couldn't prove I belonged there. And I lived with the constant worry that the authorities would stop me and ask for documents I no longer had. Turns out they rarely do that, though it does happen. I felt like an undocumented visitor in a country that had welcomed me, but couldn't officially recognize me anymore. In a way, I was an illegal. After I moved and was settled in, I emailed the embassy again, this time to update my address and ask once more about the status of my application. A week later, I received a short reply. Was your original passport a 5-year or a 10-year issue? When I told them it was a 10-year passport, things changed. A new fast track policy had just come into effect for 10-year passports. Within weeks, late June, actually, my new passport was delivered by courier to my San Antonio apartment. I nearly cried. My prayers had been answered. But the adventure wasn't over. You see, the passport was blank. There was no entry stamp. There was no visa of any kind. There was no record of me ever entering Mexico. I was still undocumented and still stuck. I couldn't just carry on with life. I needed to leave Mexico and re-enter legally with a fresh stamp. And at that point in time, they weren't giving everybody that came into Mexico a 6-month visitor visa. So I didn't know if I'd get that or 14 days. Who knew? But I started hunting for options that were legal and affordable. But that's another story for another video. Have you ever tried to replace a passport or deal with government paperwork while abroad? Let me know in the comments. And if this helped you or made you feel a little less alone, give it a like. Subscribe. Ring the bell. Next time, I'll tell you how I crossed borders and dodged disaster just to get a stamp.